pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, everybody, for coming. Today is October 1st, 2019. We are at the Mitchell County Board of Supervisors meeting at the Mitchell County Courthouse. We have an agenda in front of us. Do we have any additions or corrections to that? If none, any motions?
I have a question. Did we make those payments to the hospital for the recruitment?
We're going to next week.
Okay. I didn't know if we had to put that up, something like that. Okay. Nope. I have no correction.
I'll second the motion.
Okay,
Yeah.
Barb has made a motion, Stan has seconded. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. And approve the minutes of the September 24th meeting. Is there any additions or corrections to that?
I didn't see any changes. So I'll so move to accept the minutes.
Second?
Barb has made a motion, Stanley is second. Roll call, Barb.
Aye.
Stanley.
Aye.
Smollett, aye. So we have approved the agenda and the minutes. County Attorney, general discussion. Mark, I'll let you have the floor.
Just generally, Sheriff Beaver just handed me this presentation that was put out by Carl at the insurance meeting. And I just started reading it when we were sitting here, and I learned one thing new right off the bat, which I wasn't aware of, that people do not have a right to come into the courthouse and record things with a video camera. If somebody would have called me up and asked me, I would have said absolutely they've got a right to do that, because there's an absolute right to record supervisors' meetings.
Yeah.
And so I thought, well, if they've got the right to record supervisors' meetings, they've got the right to record what you're doing in your office, they've got the right to record what Lowell's doing or whatever anybody else is doing. But the United States Supreme Court has said, no, they absolutely don't. If someone comes in and starts recording and you don't want them here, you can tell them to leave, and if they don't leave, they can be arrested. So I'm only on page 6 of 17, and I've learned something already. So,
But we're sure that doesn't pertain to supervisor meetings.
supervisors' meetings it doesn't apply to, because there's a provision in the Iowa code that says they have the right, that's an open meeting, so they have a right to tape that. But they've got a right to tape that, but if you're sitting in your office, somebody comes in there and wants to start taping, that they can't do. They can do the meeting, but they can't go into your office or Lowell's or anybody's tape.
Okay, I suppose they would give them ability if they were scoping out the place in case of a future assault or something.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, it's kind of difficult because maybe somebody could be using their phone.
Yeah.
So,
But what about before the meeting, like 20 minutes before? So you're sitting in the boardroom?
No,
that would be no.
no. The meeting they can is.
So once the meeting is
Yeah.
officially started, then it's,
Yep.
they can, but before that is no.
Yep.
Okay.
Second thing, we had another student arrest for mentioning the word gun in school in the same conversation. It occurred later yesterday, so he was taken into custody. The police department will be doing another press release sometime this morning. But these kids just have to start learning they cannot use the word gun in school in the same sentence or even in the same paragraph, or they're going to get taken into custody and they're going to get charged with the threat of terrorism. But
Can I ask which school?
St. Ansgar, or Osage, why did I say St. Ansgar?
Okay.
Yep.
I took my rifle to school and varnished the stock and reblued it there. That was part of shop class.
It was a different world, wasn't it? When I went to school, everybody had their shotgun in the back seat of their trunk so they could go pheasant hunting on the way home. But, you know, and nobody thought anything of it. So, as people say, it's not guns, it's It's mental health is what it is.
Yeah.
It's a mental health issue, it's not a gun issue. That's my take. I sent you an email all this morning, you probably haven't even received it because I just sent it a few minutes ago. That has to do on that opioid litigation, which just keeps getting more convoluted and more convoluted. What it amounts to is they're gonna pay a bunch of money, and then there's gonna be the states and the federal government and the cities and
Trickle
the
down.
counties fighting over who gets what, you know, is what it's gonna be billions and billions of dollars, and it's just gonna be a fight over who gets what. And if it's like the class action lawsuits, when everything's all said and done, we'll get 17 cents or something like that, you know, and somebody will get billions. But that's where we are on that right now. And that's all I have.
Okay, does anybody have anything for Mark?
Well, this really doesn't apply to county stuff and that, but I was talking to an individual the other day. And, you know, basically, when it comes to attorneys here in Mitchell County, you're getting older, a couple others are getting older, but it seems like the younger attorneys, they don't care to come to these rural areas. What are you seeing? Are you seeing any opportunities? I mean, you know, at some point in time, if we have the older ones retire and no younger ones, are we gonna have to start going to Waterloo and that? And again, this can really be, you know, an issue for people in the county. So,
We don't think about that every day.
well,
I mean, we'd hire somebody right now if we could. We're trying to, but you have the problem, and it's happened twice within the last couple of years. You know, the firms around here, they hire somebody fresh out of law school who knows nothing, okay? They don't. They really don't know how to do anything when they graduate from law school. They train them for a couple of years, and they lose money on them because they're paying them a salary and they're not bringing in what they're getting paid. And then as soon as they learn something, then they apply at a term in Waterloo or Des Moines or whatever and move there. Iowa City, you know, so it's a problem, yeah. It's the same problem they're having recruiting doctors. You know, it takes a special person. Take somebody, and you're not supposed to say this, but take somebody who's married or close to married and has children and wants to move to a community and raise children. You know, the odds of hiring somebody single, not married, attached, and staying here are slim.
well, one good thing, I was talking to, I was in one of the local banks here and talking to one of the employees yesterday. And this person lives in Northwood. Her husband has a good job in Worth County and this and that, but she said, you know, our youngest person is a senior in high school, going to graduate this year. Your incentive program for housing, my husband and I are thinking of moving to Mitchell County. And we're looking at both St. Ansgar and Osage, and at least we are getting some good feedback from what we are trying to do, like you say,
Well, my opinion on that incentive program, which is just my opinion, doesn't mean anything. It's got some imperfections, it's not perfect, but I think it's, at least with regard to new housing and rental units, it's accomplishing the purpose that it was trying to accomplish. Now, is it perfect? No. I think every one of us would sit here and say it's not perfect. But I think it's done a lot of good for the county.
well, we argued for almost 2 years on, like you say, we tried to come up with a perfect thing and we couldn't.
No. You're never gonna come up perfect. You do the best you can and hope. That's all you can do. That's all you can do. Do the best you can and just tell people, hey, I did the best I could. Was it perfect? No. But I tried. I told Stan this, and he's heard me say it 100 times. people who do the least are the ones who complain the most.
Sometimes it's that way, unfortunately.
All right, anything? Oh, I'm gonna be gone the next 2 weeks.
The next 2 weeks?
Yeah. So,
I was gonna ask you, I heard that rumor.
Yep, almost forgot.
The next thing is our redistricting, I mean, just for your information, if you wanna stick around.
Yep.
but,
Yep, sure.
Anyway, thank you, Mark.
Yep,
Yep, thank you.
yep.
We'll move on to number 4, consideration of supervisor redistricting map. Rita, I'll let you have the hot seat.
Okay, good morning, and thank you for putting
Go
this
ahead,
on
sit
the
down.
agenda. No, yeah, up here, okay? We also have 2 other members of our redistricting committee here, or, I'm sorry, 3 with Stan, so we've got Mike Meyer and Mark Hendrickson, and I would appreciate it if there's something I missed out that you help me and we make sure that we cover what we want to need, or we need to cover today. So I did pass out packets to all of you, and I thought what I'd first do is step through the materials that's in your packet, and then go back through, and cover what I believe is important, and certainly if you have any questions, I'd appreciate you stopping and asking those questions. So we also have posted maps on the wall. This is what you see for the maps, is we have the proposed district map, and since we're Plan 3, we also need to submit a precinct map. So the first map, and again, these are all things that we had at the public hearing last night. The first map is what we started with as a committee and individually. We're trying to draw through different maps, different things that we proposed, and that's how we began the process. This map is still important to people because with that map, it actually kind of gives you the lay of the land. It tells you where the streets, highways are, to kind of give you a better feel where these lines are at. The next 2 maps are GIS maps, which I can't tell you how much I appreciate working with Casey, who helped with this process, and Lola as well, because one of the key things when you turn this in or submit it to the state is you want to make sure that your population tracks, that's the key of how we build this, are accurate. And the population maps can be a bit tricky because they do not correlate with sections necessarily. So I just really wanted to make sure before we submitted it that we still, our numbers, our thoughts were accurate, and we were within the deviation. And I feel very comfortable saying that today, that that the numbers that I'm submitting are accurate. The next item that you've got is your descriptions. That again is something, the maps need to be submitted to the state, the legal descriptions need to be submitted to the state, and so that is one of the attachments. And we also have a summary page on page 4 of that, which is a statement of each district's population, including the deviations. So again, this was presented last night. The next attachment or handout that you have is the county precincting worksheet. And this is something that is important to the 3 of you and Lowell as well, because this is a document. The only page that we presented last night out of this document was page 2, which is the county, the precinct population. So that was again something that was noted that needed to be reviewed at the public hearing. But this is a document that summarizes, it's a worksheet, and I would like to step through that with you this morning just to kind of again explain what's in there. The next attachment is the summary of the public hearing last night, and I'd say the key points to that, I mean, this kind of reads like minutes, but the key points that we walked away with was it would be helpful with the GIS maps if we had a point of reference for some of the roads and the streets, to just at that point, and I mentioned that to Casey this morning, and that is key where we are, drawing our lines for the precincts, or even, when we end up having to split a township, just again, so people have a point of reference. It's not quite as important when it comes to when you've got the whole township in there, because people are familiar with that, but with the new splits, we feel that that would be helpful. This was, the last thing I put in, again, and this was just a point of reference for you, it was this is what we started with. This gives you an idea of what the township and city populations are, because you might be curious about it, and that is, you know, one of the things that we had to start and work with to make sure that we were within our deviation. Okay, so, I don't know if you wanna help me up there or not, but, because, do you mind pointing out, like, let's just start and talk about, just to kind of visually talk through the districts, the 5 districts. So District 1, and we tried to color code these, so District 1 is, you'll see that, and I'm not gonna walk through the legal description because it gets a little rough. But if you see that, it is wards 1 and 3 for Osage.
No.
Sorry,
2 and,
I'm sorry, 2
Two
and
and
3, so sorry. That's why I should have read it.
well, 1.
Yes, yeah, 2 and 3, wards 2 and 3, and then you'll see that it is Osage Township, which is west of Osage, and then it picks up a piece of Cedar Township, which, you know, then connects to, you know, Ward 3. District 2 is the other half of Osage, so that's 1 and 4, and then the other part of Osage Township, and then it takes that piece of West Lincoln, which is pink, which is, you know, a very large part of West Lincoln, and includes the city of Orchard. Thank you. District 3, a lot of blue there, and the partials, what you see of the townships, or as you see the blue, it is the east side of West Lincoln, and then you'll see where Liberty is almost, I would say, split in half, so part of Liberty then, of course, is in District 3, and it includes the cities of McIntyre and that portion of Riceville, which is within Mitchell County. District 4 is the kind of the light greenish yellow, and that, as you can see, we have full townships of Rock, Newburgh, Otranto, Union, Stacyville, and then that portion of Liberty, and that includes the city of Stacyville, as well as Carpenter over in Newburgh. For the District 5, which is the green, as you see, it's all of St. Ansgar, all of Mitchell, and then most of Cedar, except for that portion that is in District 1. And that includes the city of St. Ansgar and the city of Mitchell. So if you want to step over here, I think I try to describe the precincts as well, but if you kind of, the visual thing that's kind of hard to see until you get up close to that map is when it comes to districts, I'm going to talk about Osage 1 and 3, and then it will be, I'll say 1, 2, 3, and 4. Number 9, if you don't mind kind of trying to show that it's kind of in the middle of Osage. Number 9 is in the middle of Osage, right?
yes.
So that is, when you get up closer, you can distinguish the colors. But that is the dividing line besides, you know, the boundaries of the district. So that's precincts 1, 2, 3, and 4. So each district has 2 precincts. When we go over to 5, that's a bit easier to see visually between the colors, if you're not colorblind. And so that is the feedback that we're giving as well, because Steve had mentioned that for him, it's harder for him to see, but you can see that the split would be Liberty. That is the precinct, again, that is a split township. When we, okay, so that was 5 and 6, 7 and 8. The split there is, 8 is very clean where it's Rock, Newburgh, Otranto, and again, for 7, but I'm sorry, and I should mention, Carpenter is in precinct 8, and then in 7, we have Stacyville, and again, the split, you know, for the boundary line would be Liberty, which we had talked through before. Our last precincts are 9 and 10, which is in District 5, and again, for precinct 9 is St. Ansgar, and precinct 10 is the city of Mitchell. The other point I wanted to make is, there's some squiggly things in there, right there, and you'll see it down the bottom. We tried and we thought we were in line by drawing a straight line with sections, and that's the power of the GIS system, because it sits on top of the census Excel spreadsheet or the population tracks, and it pointed out that we could not split a population track, so that's why you're gonna see that little green that Mike just showed you. That one is pretty prominent, but we also have that down in, almost by that number 2 for Cedar, that doesn't make it a clear section. Do you have any questions or concerns so far?
I have none.
You may want to mention that this particular map was voted on and passed by all 5 members.
Well, and maybe I can just expand on it. So, just to kind of talk about how we went through this process, we had 4, we called them public meetings just to kind of share in July, just to say what we were thinking about where we're at. They were not mandatory, we just thought we wanted some transparency. And I think it was interesting because as we moved along in the process, of course, you learned more and more. And we found that one of our maps, you can't split a ward. And then we had some feedback saying that they really liked how we had like a town or a city incorporated with a rural area. But there was some concern about, was it compact enough? Was there some areas that kind of made it really spread out? So with taking that feedback and then knowing that we had to move on to precincts, that is actually how we realized that the ward was an issue. So we went back and said we have to make the corrections. So we met, I believe it was like July 30th is we met and said, we've got some errors here we have to correct. And so we decided that, well, let's go back and do some corrections. And so we met again, I think it was August 8th, and we ended up with one of our committee members went back and developed 4 maps. And so, and then we had 2 other maps, and so we had 6 maps laying on the table, and we went through the process of kind of just keep turning them over, and we came back to like possibly the last 3 that we thought were the best, and then we actually, when we got down and looked at those maps, and we picked the one that had the cleanest lines. And I think then, by doing that process, we were all aligned that that was the map that we were going to go with. And that's, again, then we moved on with the precincts. Okay, so I think the next thing I'm going to say skip to, because this is a form that's important to you, is the State of Iowa County re-precincting worksheet. Thank you, Mike.
Yep.
And it does on page 2, as I referenced, it talks about the population of the precincts. I don't find that as important, but it was a mandatory effort. So I'll just point that out. It must be important to somebody. But I would like to walk through pages 4 and then page 5 to talk about how the numbers were calculated. And we did present this in a summary last night, which you'll find is on your attachment of page 4, when we talked about the legal descriptions. So what you needed to do to find the ideal district population is take the county population, and of course this was all based off the 2010 census, so it was 10,776 divided by 5, so that was 2,155. That represents what an ideal population would be. The maximum allowable variation, so you take your ideal population of 2,155 and it can be 1%, so you're multiplying by 0.01. And as we think about math, that is where you're moving your decimal point over 2 places. So you come out with 21.55, which is the maximum allowable variation. So we're talking about 21 people because it, of course, needs to be a whole person. So that means, and I got a note someplace because that means you can be, the maximum you can be is 21 over 21,000 or 2,155, or 21 less than 2,155. Then that means that the largest district, when you do that math, can be no larger than 2,176 and no smaller than 2,134. So as we move down and walk through the district variations, District 1, if you want to refer back to the map, is population of 2,169, so the variation there is over 14. For District 2, the population is 2,171, so we are a variation of being over 16. District 3 in the blue is 2,144, which is a variation of under 11. District 4 with a population of 2,145, that you can see in kind of the light green area there, is 2,145 with a variation of a -10. And District 5 with a population of 2,147 with a variation of a -8 or below 8. So you then take that, it goes on to the next worksheet where you take the 10,776, I'm sorry, the variation of 59. You take the variation, as we look on page 5, of the average variation. Take the overall variation divided by 5 and makes the average variation 11.8. And then this is one of the key things that we knew that we had to strive for, was to divide the population of the largest district by the smallest district, so that our largest one is 2,171, divided by the smallest 2,144, which is equal to 1.01. And this number must be less than 1.05, which it is. And those are our requirements for the deviation. And that's a lot to think
So
about.
you had to really get close.
That's a lot to talk and think about, but that is the document that you'll be turning in the state, so I did want to at least walk that through with you. Other than that, I have extra information for you. If other people have any questions or concerns, but what comments or feedback do you have for us?
Well, the next step is basically that the Board of Supervisors need to discuss and possibly approve this plan. And then it goes to the state, which also needs to approve of it. And so just because we approve of it does not mean this would be the final plan, just so that you're aware of it. And but there's no reason, in my opinion, why the state shouldn't approve of this. But yet again, I mean, members of the public and that could file a complaint with the state, and maybe they would decide that, but just to give you a heads up, I mean, that's what can happen.
One other thing I should have mentioned is this does need to be submitted to the state by October 15th.
Do you have any comments?
I have complete trust in the committee that I know, I've seen how hard they work on this.
Yes, I do too. I think you've done well. You've put a lot of work and effort into this, and I thank you for doing that.
And I would say on behalf of the committee, I think we had a very good committee. We all had different skills. And Lowell and Casey really, I mean, like I said, I feel good about the numbers before we submit them to the state, because we definitely, we're part of that process.
It does say on the agenda, consideration, so I would so move that we approve of it.
And I second it.
Okay, Stanley has made a motion. Barb has seconded it. Roll call.
You should have further discussion on something like that.
Yes, excuse me. Any other discussion?
Well, no, from us, not the public.
I don't have any more discussion.
I don't either, but I mean, just,
Well, just in case somebody else does have something to say, but if not, roll call. Stanley,
aye.
Barb,
Aye.
and Smollett, aye. So this has been passed. And again, thank you for all your time in doing this, because you put a lot of time into it. Moving on. Sheriff Department update. Greg.
Yeah, so real briefly, I think you can probably see the buildup of construction equipment, shingles and such on the
Yes.
south side over here. We're gonna try and keep that area open so that they can work from that end. I don't know when they're gonna actually start, but they're stacking shingles over there, so I anticipate relatively soon.
Did you have
As soon
any
as the
moisture
rain's done.
last night?
Looks like we did. So, yeah, we'll get that taken care of as soon as the weather clears. We have 3 this morning, same 3 folks from last week being held to court. And really, that's probably about it for us this week.
I guess it
anyway.
really doesn't affect you, but I did have a couple of phone calls yesterday wondering why we didn't hire somebody from Mitchell County to do the work as opposed to outside of the county.
Well, we tried
think
to
nobody bid
get,
it.
we tried to get people to bid on it in the county,
Yeah.
and,
Yeah, we should
No,
make
I
it
really-
clear,
I mean, I
nobody
realize
bid.
that-
they showed interest in it, but when it come time to throw a bid down, they just didn't wanna do it. They didn't have enough people, or they decided they didn't wanna.
So we tried.
No, I realize, I mean, I'm just telling you that.
No, it's good to point it out
My
for
phone.
anybody who's watching this.
I did
Yes.
have somebody question me why it wasn't put up for bids through the paper, and I explained it was under 100,000 and we could do it this way.
Yeah, it's much easier to work with our local folks. And yeah, we prefer to spend the money locally, but we gotta have the guys interested
Well,
locally too. So.
you can't, you don't seem to make everybody happy. You always have somebody unhappy with how you do things, but we did try numerous contractors locally, and in the end, they just would not give us a bid. They just, so,
And maybe it's because they're all busy, which is a good thing,
Right.
all right?
well, the big problem was manpower and the size of the roof.
Sure.
We did have one contractor that has the manpower and would have entertained other employees from another contractor, but they didn't even want to throw a bid in.
Sure. So really, that's all I have, unless you have questions of me or the public does, I'll be happy to answer them, but that's all I have for you this morning.
don't believe that the supervisors have anything, so Greg, thank you.
All right,
Thank you,
thank you
Caleb.
guys, have a good day.
County engineer,
Morning.
good morning.
Not a lot to discuss, just an update on the Stacyville project a little bit. Box culverts are in, finally, after all the rain. The aprons and everything are done on each end, they're just backfilling now. There's a lot of work to do yet as far as the riprap of inlet and outlet sides of the box culvert, and then backfilling and paving yet. Don't know really. Talked to the contractor this morning a little bit. They were there just watching it rain and trying to figure out what they can do in the meantime, but there's some work to be done yet, but at least they're out of the hole now and things will actually maybe pick up where they won't be inconvenienced so much with the weather. I mean, for the most part, they've got the big structure and they can start running the water through it, so that's the nice thing, is they don't have to worry about pumping water anymore. So, a little bit of underground stuff to do, but they're out of the wet stuff, so. Other than that, I know that we're looking at equipment yet. I know the guys went and looked at a loader yesterday. They're probably looking at a loader today. I know we need another loader for our blower, and I know we're short loaders everywhere, so we're trying to figure out how to maneuver the equipment around to put it where we best need it. So I've let the foreman and mechanic know where we're at with budget, so they're kind of just feeling it out. I don't have time to go spot all this stuff, so they can look at it themselves and determine what's the best value. And then working on some projects, trying to get them out the door for next fiscal year. So a lot going on yet, still closing out some projects yet. I know that, I think Adam's Trail project is, I don't know if he's reported you guys at all. I know they got it paved, so that's going on. And we do have a lot of work out there yet for Wicks Construction to do some patching yet. We still had them on, I don't know what, I haven't had contact with them for a while. I know they're supposed to be patching the landfill road yet. That's what we have a contract for. And then in addition to that, I'm still trying to find time to review the videos of the pre and post construction damage from the wind tower people yet. So there are some patches that need to be done there too, and they're aware of it. So just trying to figure out if there's more that I haven't caught. So that's where the pre and post videos come in handy. I know there's a few stretches on, I'll use the quarry road there, going past folks, Dino Quarry. I know that the road kind of took a beating this spring with the frost and everything else, but I also think that some of that was due to the repetitive loads that they were being hauled out. So just gonna look at that stuff a little bit and try to determine where things are. I'm gonna guess they're not gonna get any of the patches done this winter or this fall yet, so it'll probably be next spring or this coming spring. So, but we're still in contact with those people and they're aware of what's going on. So.
Okay. Loader, you probably need a pretty good sized loader to run that blower.
Well, yeah, it's just mostly to lift it. The blower's got its own power unit on it.
It's the weight that it's gonna take.
So we've compared. We know what mayors use when they had that, so we're getting an idea of what John Deere has versus what Cat has to compare the size of the machine to what we're going to need for that. So,
Okay.
and we do have all the new employees on payroll now, so.
Yeah, I did see some new faces there this morning when I stopped in.
Break them in while it rains, I guess. Teach them how to run a broom, I guess, for now.
You beat me to that.
Some of them were out signing yesterday, and some of them were out doing other things. So take a little bit of time, and then we get some training opened up. We get that LTAP motor grader training and whatnot. We'll try to get some more individuals sent to that too. But for now, they're going to learn by being thrown to the fire. But there's time yet. There's time before snow flies to get on the machine.
Yep. Yep. That's a little time on the road before they get shoved into a machine.
And I think the new motor grader is, I think it's in Mason City, Clear Lake, wherever Cat decides their home base is, but that's there. They're just waiting for snow equipment yet. So I don't know how long it'll be. He didn't give me much of an indication when the equipment will be in, but I would think we'll probably have it before winter.
Is that one run by joysticks?
Yep, everything's run by joystick. I don't know. I haven't done much digging around to know if rumor had it that some of those manufacturers are going back to steering wheels. I don't know if that's true or not. I haven't done much research.
Just remember, down the road, you can't pull somebody off of Main Street and stick them in a machine that's run.
Well, that all depends on if they've been playing video games or
I was
not.
gonna say, the younger ones, it's
Yeah.
probably.
And that was what they were taught. The generations were getting younger, and so they thought the younger generation moving into this heavy equipment would catch on faster. I though gotta say, our older generation caught on pretty quick. I'd say that they caught on pretty well and run it pretty good. So.
Well, again, you can't pull somebody off of
No.
Main Street and
No.
then shove them out the next day in a blizzard in this.
Yeah, it's like trying to throw my son into a stick shift car, thinking he's gonna know how to run
Oh,
it.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, it wouldn't be a good thing to have it laying on the side in the middle of a blizzard out in the ditch.
Right. So.
Okay, does anybody have anything for Rich?
Yes.
Yes.
We talked a few weeks ago about possibly trying to do some major maintenance next year on the gravel roads. If Richie's gonna do something, we're gonna have to know how much money that we're going to use for that, and it would have to be TIF money.
Okay, Rich, did you come up with a?
I haven't done anything with that.
But there's no sense Richie working on it if we're not gonna do any funding of it either. So, I mean, that's really where we gotta start, I think, is give him an idea of what we wanna do for funding, so that he can come up with a program that then we can go ahead and, basically approve or disapprove or, cut it or add to it or whatever the
Well, it's
case
gonna-
may be, but we gotta start somewhere.
It's gonna take some time to figure out what the best solution is for some of those places. I know up on the state line over up by Otranto there, between the bridges, they had Bow Brothers tiling up there. They were tiling from the bridge to the east for the townships of Minnesota, and we had them do the, I don't know if it was 2,000 feet of that road down the middle, because that one kind of exploded this spring. So there's a tile down the middle of that one. I think that was, I won't give the quote out publicly, I don't, but it was a couple bucks a foot, which was pretty economical for us. So whether they all need it or not, I know we've been doing some work over there at the Wagner Quarry where they've got the new, we'll call it the Cappy Quarry just for short, because I'll pronounce it wrong if I say the real. But with that road getting more traffic on there, we've been trying to stabilize. We went down center line and cored it out and put some 3-inch material in there to stabilize center, and then kind of clean the ditches out to rebuild that short stretch there because of the projected increased traffic on that road. So we're trying to rebuild that one. I know some other ones we've straightened up with additional rock this spring, a lot of rock in fact. So there are just a lot of them out there, and I'm not positive that a lot of the spots that showed up this year are going to even show up for another 20, 30 years. But we should have most of them. I think we had I can't remember the individual's name. We had one go out and give us GPS locations on what he could find out there for all the bad spots we could find while we had them here. So I'm sure, I haven't seen the map yet, but I know there's quite a few locations. The map probably looks more like a bunch of little flags than it does any map that you consider a map. So just a matter of whether or not, number one, if it's a small spot about 2 feet long, is it worth sticking the money into versus something that's longer, a couple hundred feet, would be something you'd want to target more. But as far as dollars go, I have no idea how much to spend, what we're going to do in all of them yet. Right now I'm focusing on current projects that need letting before December, January, February. So
Do you think that you could have just a crazy number to us before the end of the year?
I can throw you a crazy number. Yeah.
Well,
I can.
I guess
Right.
with
Get
what,
you
with
an estimate on what we think it's going to be and where.
what you think you could
Yeah.
realistically get
Well,
done.
and whether or not we do it or we hire it out's the other thing too. I mean, it might be easier to say, let's just put a tile down the middle of every road. Well, hire somebody with a tiling machine and just cut right down the middle of the road and get it done. But it takes time.
I guess I can't see putting money forward without a plan and an idea of what
That's
you
what I'm
need.
thinking.
Right.
Because we can take tens of thousands of dollars and throw it on the ground, but that's not gonna do anything.
Right.
A plan in what you are going to do, an estimated cost,
Yep.
an idea.
In
And
the
then,
time period of a year.
yes,
Yeah.
again, this is beginning of October. We have some time here to
Have
play
some time.
with.
But basically, I mean, December 31st really almost has to be the deadline if we're going to have the funding in place for next calendar year.
October, November, December, that gives us 3 months.
Right, but, you know, it's gonna take.
That's a short
us-
time for me, I'll tell you that, but
But it's gonna
we'll
take
work
us
on
3
it.
to 4 months to do the paperwork then, to have Jeff Heil and our bonding attorney, John Danos, and that hold the hearings and so forth, so that we would be ready to go by, like you say, the 1st of April, 1st of May, and that'll come fast.
Hopefully Rich can come up with
When we
something.
get done with this, I know that when we get this box culvert project done in Statesville, I know Jim will have a little bit more time to help out with some of that estimation too, because he's been working with the young individual that located all these spots, so he's got all the data and we can focus on that now that I'll still be swamped with projects, but I can give Jim a little bit of,
Yeah, delegate.
yep,
To me, it's hard to say, well, we need X amount of dollars if we don't know what we need
It
for
is.
X amount of dollars.
Like to be
You
able to
can't,
show.
and during budget time is
Put
when we're
that
gonna
amount
find
out
out where
there.
everything's at. I mean, it might not be just fixing gravel roads, but even some of our hard service roads might need some local dollars just by the way the funding is, so. We'll get a better idea of it, but we'll work on a plan, and maybe it's, I don't know if you try to chew it off a little bit at a time, because I don't think there's really a whole lot you can do in one season with as many miles as were damaged, but we'll look at it and we'll get an idea of where we're at.
But that's, again, like you say, no, we don't have to have it all done next year by any means. But on, what we do have to have is, or at least I would rather see that, I mean, if we can continue to do more locally ourselves as opposed to hiring it out, I mean, it still saves us a lot of money. And I mean, we can even afford some overtime if we're doing it ourselves versus hiring it out. So,
Well, that's something we'll have to look at then, because with the crew size we have and everything we do, other than gravel road maintenance, we still have hard service road maintenance. So if we take a lot of guys to do the gravel road maintenance, then we're hiring out on hard surface maintenance too. So there's gotta be a balance, so.
Okay.
But like I say, we don't have to get it all done next year.
Is there ever a possibility to hire temporary, help
You
instead
can.
of overtime?
Depends on what we're doing though, you don't really wanna hire
Right,
temporary
of
help
course,
that
of
has no
course.
experience, you gotta train them the whole time
Of
they're here too, so, yeah,
That's a given.
yep.
Charlie, we can use you again.
See if you can do some penciling
Yep.
here in the future,
We'll work on it.
and we'll kind of set this on hold for now. But
Okay.
without an idea what's up, what's gonna be done,
Right.
No, but,
what you need.
but at least you're willing to consider having something done. That's what, I mean, we really needed to know.
It's infrastructure,
Yeah,
Right, we could definitely consider.
but I wanna have an idea.
Yep.
Cause
And
I
there's-
don't wanna set $1 million and not have a game plan.
Right.
I wanna be able
No.
to answer
No, that's-
constituents if
That's
they ask what
completely-
exactly
that's
is it
completely
going
logical.
towards.
Yep.
But, this is infrastructure, this is for the county, it's for the roads.
Yep.
I don't see where it would be a big deal that way. So, but anyways,
Yep. We'll work on it.
Rita,
Is it okay to ask a question? So when it comes to the tile down the middle of the road, is that a prototype that you're looking at, or is that a proven or gold standard?
It's been used quite a
we've done it
bit.
in the past, that's something we've done in the past. The only problem with that is sometimes when they're pulling in and they hit a big rock, that happens. It
Yeah,
has
you'll get
happened.
it won't drain properly.
It doesn't work right.
There's French drain techniques, we've cored some holes in roads before too. Some methods are slower than others for construction. Sometimes tile doesn't always work the best, just because if you're in a lot of clay, it's hard to drain clay. Hard to get the water to migrate to it, but,
French drains work great, the only problem with it is with freeze thaw in the spring,
you're gonna get them, yep,
because that rock is solid. Dirt raises up, so you have the hollow in the road, and then the phone rings.
yep.
But Rita, mostly you've had success with that type of thing, right?
We've done tile, and for the most part, it works for a decent amount of time. Does it last 30 years? I don't know, the jury's out on that. I know there's places that have been tiled that still get frost boils, so. Not as bad as they used to be, but,
Mike,
Can I say something? On the Angle Road where I live, they tiled that a number of years ago. Could be 15 years ago now. It hasn't had frost boils till this last spring.
yep, some places work really good, so.
So, I don't know if the tile's plugged or did it work for a while, or is it dependent
well,
on
it
the
was
winter?
just a bad spring.
Yeah, it was a bad spring.
Right.
Pretty much. And maybe you won't have
On
another.
an average year, these
Maybe it'll be
tile
worse.
helps
Well, maybe.
drastically. But then your base also has a lot to do with it, because when these boils boil up, and it's into June and where it's pussing up, you run over there and you jab your hand in there and it's ice cold down in there.
Ice cold and there's no bottom.
Yeah,
Charlie can tell you that.
so maybe maybe the.
Yes, sir.
I didn't come here to say what I'm going to comment on here, but since it's on roads, I live near Deer Creek Church. On that corner that follows the creek,
Yes.
there are ditches on both sides that I'm sure are 5, if not 6 feet deep, and they're straight off the shoulder down. There's no way you can stop a car from rolling over if they go on the edge of that road unless it gets hung up on the undercarriage. You're gonna be upside down. Where you're discussing road improvement, there would be one place to focus on what might be done there.
You've got an idea, Rich, of this spot? I guess I know where you live, but I'm not thinking of that spot.
Well, it would be the gravel road. See, that's a county road, north-south, Xenia.
Yes.
When you go up to the church and turn east on the
Yep.
gravel, there, not too far down, that's where it's at.
It's like he's
Oh,
taking
there's that.
notes.
Unfortunately, that's a lot of gravel roads, and that one sounds pretty deep, if it's
That's
5 to 6
There's a
feet.
box culvert in there. Other than that, the road is the gravel road itself is no different than any other.
Over time,
No,
the road's
it's not the
mushroom out.
road, it's the depth of the ditch. That is a danger.
Oh, I know, I watched a loader, one of the county loaders drive in it on top of a fire one day in there. I know where you're at, I was one of the guys that cut the trees in that ditch.
They're
I-
back.
I guess the only thing I can say is, yeah, they're back. The only thing I can say is, you're supposed to drive on the road. The ditch is for drainage. And the reason your ditch is deeper there is because it's draining down to that low box culvert further to the east. Been that way for how many years? I mean,
I know it has.
A lot of places can be improved, it's,
I question too if that depth is necessary for drainage, but you know more about it than I do, so.
I guess I really don't know how many cars have been in that ditch.
It's a good thing they get hung up before they go over the edge.
Okay. Anyways, thank you, Rich. We will move on. Items of note. Meetings attended. Barb, would you like to start off?
Okay, I got a few. County Social Services was held in the town of Hawkeye. Out of the, this might be something we want to know, out of the 22 counties, only 7 are not charging rent. And, because we don't charge rent for them, do we? So that might be something we want to consider in the future. Right now, they are working on trying to find a fair price of what they would pay for rent. And so perhaps we want to wait and see what they come up with. But I think we should watch this, and if most of the others are getting rent, I think we should be able to get rent too. We reviewed our audit report from Rob Sands, and I gave Lowell the report on that. And I guess he made notes in various places in there, wanting the continuity of Medicare reporting and keeping in mind accruals that might be closed later at some counties. They were frustrated, our group was frustrated because the state keeps mandating things such as mental health for children's services and the mobile crisis center, but no money to go with it. So I'm actually gonna work on a letter, and then I'll see about getting you guys' approval for that in the next couple of weeks here, just to send out to legislators and stuff with our complaint about that. There's a 2-year waiting list on waivers for facility-based services. These items kind of led to us making a list of what to encourage legislators to work on, including having one per capita levy cap of $37 across the board for all counties, so there would be no property tax increases. And I mentioned this to Lowell too. I had a substance abuse coalition meeting, and we have 2 separate funds. I'm not sure exactly, I think one fund was just specifically used in one area. They decided to combine them together for less confusion. Let's see. St. Ansgar health class has one teacher who doesn't want to teach Prime for Life. And we're trying to figure out why, because all the other teachers have claimed it's really valuable. So anyway, we're gonna check into, instead of in 9th grade, that their 8th grade, maybe teacher, would like to start the kids on that. Maybe just doing it a year early. We are checking if the businesses that didn't do proper carding for selling alcohol, to see if any of those people need the tips training. And Amy of Prairie Ridge said she would help that, as she is certified. Redistricting at the Nature Center, Rita pretty much covered everything. They had 13 people attend, which included 4 of the committee members. Really, the only suggestions I was aware of is that they wanted to put on the maps, which we've already mentioned to Casey, the roads such as your 218 and your 9, exactly where they're at, to help people when they're trying to figure out even their precincts. And they wanted for the paper, the maps to be made as large as possible. Economic development. Tony gave us updates on meetings he's attended and grants he's become more aware of, such as the Catalyst Grant for downtown building owners. And he went to the PDI conference and he checked out housing programs that were done elsewhere. And he said he thought ours sounded pretty good compared to others, except we could improve on meeting the needs of existing structure renovation. Most of the others were doing a lot more for disadvantaged individuals than we are. He got to tour several renovations, including upper story residential and office use areas. But most of those happen to be high end. And I guess Tony's not here to add anything, so I think that's it.
Okay, Stanley?
I had no meetings, but thinking again of County Attorney Walk's statement that there was an issue yesterday at school. You know, again, we funded that program from the gal from Cresco.
Yep.
And I'm really wondering again if this is having an impact on where these kids are deciding, you know, if they see something that they're turning it in. And of course, the county attorney won't be here for a couple of weeks, but it'll be interesting to, you know, we might be making an impact just by.
I would be curious to know.
I'd be curious too. I mean, now that, you know.
Because it sounds like a wonderful idea.
Because I do think that it does have an impact if they're teaching it the right way and that these are issues, you know, you want to be involved with kid because, you know, it's going to impact you and so on and so forth. And I think they are stepping forward. Maybe, like I said, maybe in a couple of weeks we can try to ask a little more about it.
Okay.
I did miss one part on the back of my sheet here. With county social services. Sam, who is here from juvenile
And
detention.
Sam Hudson.
Yeah, from juvenile detention out of Waterloo. Our portion of their center has decreased a lot, but we'll continue to support them as this is for those without Medicare or a place to go. Just so you're aware. And we worked on agreement with Kossuth County and amended it to say that $300,000 that they still owe does have to be paid back within 4 years. We put a time limit on it.
Good.
And that was it.
Okay, I didn't have any meetings either, but they're coming up in the future. Manure management plan updates, Lowell.
DCI site, 3250 Kirkwood Avenue, Osage. Friesen 5 site, 2169 410th Street, Osage. Fluky Farm, 3890 Indigo Avenue, Osage. Heman East Finisher Farm, 1301 70th Street, Riceville. And Fred Kashmeder, 3328 450th Street, Riceville.
Okay, thank you, Lowell. Next is board appointment to North Iowa Housing Authority, and that would be the position that
Marilyn Johans.
Marilyn Johans held.
She retired, she quit?
Well, I would imagine she probably
And
is.
she's moved away.
Oh,
They moved?
They're living in Grundy Center. So.
I didn't know that. Okay. Do we have someone that we would like to talk with to take her position over?
Is that something that Tony with housing? I don't.
That is.
Or get a suggestion from him?
That is where your mother, this housing authority
Oh, okay.
manages that facility.
Oh, gotcha, okay.
And
Oh, I think we might need to think about that
yeah,
more.
well, that would be something give some thought on.
How often do they meet? Anybody know?
Sporadically, I believe.
Okay.
she said once or twice a year.
It isn't often, I mean, it's basically
But Tony might be somebody to question too.
That he
on
might have
that.
a suggestion.
Anyways, is that how we want to leave that then
Well,
for now?
Unless you've got a name.
basically that we could post that on Facebook, that the position, I mean, you know, we're looking for
Sure.
somebody to,
I don't know why
it
not.
wouldn't cost us anything to do that. And
Casey, who's been taking care of that kind of stuff? You?
Well, yeah, we were just talking about that yesterday, about starting our social media page up again. We haven't been
Doing.
posting too much, but
Yeah,
we were just talking about that yesterday, actually.
okay.
So yeah, I can, let me know what you want me to post and I'll post it.
Okay. Thank you, Casey. We will move on then to public comments, and I think, Mr. Anderson, would you like to sit up here in the hot seat?
Is that what you call it?
That's
Well,
what he calls it.
That's the hot seat.
Okay.
That gives you the floor when you're there.
Well, I've never been to one of these meetings, so I'm kind of in the
Okay.
dark the way things go, but I'll do my best. I'm Paul Anderson. I live near Carpenter, about a quarter of a mile west and a half mile north. And I have been concerned for some time, along with some other people, about the signing that we're doing on our county highways regarding deer and using the word suicidal. So I put together something here to read to you, and I'm not going to try and ad-lib because I'm afraid I might forget something that I wanted to say. My concern then for being here this morning is about a county highway sign on the outskirts of St. Ansgar West, County Highway 105. The sign reads, "Suicidal deer." I suppose the sign was put there in an attempt at humor, but I and a growing number of people feel that it falls far short of that. I have endured 2 suicides in my immediate family, my grandson and my son. My grandson hung himself. My son put a gun in his mouth and pulled the trigger. They are both children and adults for which we have many pictures and other remembrances in our home. Like most other people do, except how they died is what this sign reminds me of each time I go by it, which is about twice a day. How they died is a chill that rips through a family and never really goes away. September, being Suicide Awareness Month, reflects the degree to which our schools, our youth, our poor, our veterans, our neighbors, how they all labor at coming to terms with the word suicide. Ask school counselors, law enforcement, ask clergy, ask first responders and EMS people, ask medical professionals if they find anything funny about the word suicide. Think about a veteran suffering from PTSD driving past that sign. It very well could be the triggering point for him or her over whether or not they get on with a life of normalcy. According to a recent study by the Center for Disease Control, on average, 1 person dies by suicide every 19 hours in the state of Iowa. I didn't have anything close to that idea. It's the second leading cause of death for ages 15 through 34. Iowa ranks ahead of the national death rate for people dying from suicide. Truckers stop to take pictures of this sign according to conversations that I personally have had with people living in close location to the sign. This means that St. Ansgar's reputation for highway humor is being spread throughout our state and probably our nation. So, in closing, what do I want? I want the sign, both here in St. Ansgar, well, I'm here in Osage, and the one in Osage. I understand there's one somewhere here. To read simply, "Deer Crossing." I've been told that a sign such as this is already available in inventory in Mitchell County. This could be a 10-minute job, and the problem is no longer a problem. Thank you for listening.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson. Any comments?
I do have an opinion on that. First of all, of course, we're very sorry for your loss. And I am personally aware that among veterans, because I've read a lot of articles, among veterans, among farmers, that could be why Iowa's so high, and are young, the statistics are going up for suicide. I do understand that they meant it in humor. I do understand that, but I also think it was insensitive, and I would like to see them down. It's my opinion.
Stanley?
It was primarily because we had a lot of vehicles hitting deer in some areas. Yes, there was possibly a little humor involved, but it also had a lot of awareness that people otherwise aren't paying attention to. It's kind of like other signs. You see so many signs that you start not paying attention to anything. Basically, we have not had an issue in the last 2 years. I don't think anybody said anything at our board meeting since Steve's been on, have they, Steve?
Well, they haven't said anything during the board meeting.
Yeah, and I've had comments both ways. A lot of people support the signs, so
A lot of people?
yes.
I
How
don't
many
necess-
is a lot?
I never counted, but
I
I
can
can,
put together a lot of people.
I can too. But, and I also had a grandfather that hung himself, so I mean, I'm not trying to be, and I've had other people
Then
that had.
why use the word suicide? Why not schizophrenic deer? Why not bipolar?
Like I said, it was-
Bipolar deer.
It was,
Why not?
the idea behind it was to make
Somebody
People aware.
laugh.
people aware that we have a lot of deer in these areas and we're having issues with people hitting
You
deer.
missed the boat, Stan. Admit it.
Well,
You're not a humorist. Stick to what you know something about.
thank you.
I know
Anyways.
Osage turned it down from having it. put up
Anyways, moving on with this, this sign is a advisory sign or a warning sign, so that it needs no resolution to be taken down. All that is needed is the two supervisors to support their removal from the road system. And I never thought much of the signs when they first went up, and I was an employee of the county at the time. And you do as you're told, so we put them up. But now as a supervisor, I don't see the humor in them, never did. So I would like to have the signs removed. Barb, you have indicated that you would like to see the signs removed.
Correct.
So with that being said, we're carrying, and we do not need a resolution to take them down, because we never got a resolution to put them up. I believe that we shall take them down. Is there any further discussion on this from the public? Fellow supervisors?
I just want to say that was very touching. Well done.
Thank you, Mr. Anderson, for coming.
Thank you for having me.
Is there anything else up for public discussion, period? If not,